Greetings, this is an analysis of my remote viewing session on the second or baby red spot on the planet Jupiter. Now when we look at Jupiter through our telescopes, we can't actually see the surface because it's covered in a thick layer of gas. Now this gas makes up its atmosphere, and as such it is turbulent and always changing and forms little storms on its surface. The most famous of these is the giant red spot on Jupiter, which according to Wikipedia is bigger than the Earth and over 350 years old, if you can believe that. Now if you look at some of the close-up photographs of the red spot on Jupiter, you will see that there are other smaller white storms around it. Now in about 2001, some of these smaller white storms coalesced to form a bigger storm which eventually turned red, and because of that it gained a modicum of notoriety and there was named Oval BA, or the Red Spot Junior. And it was the Red Spot Junior, or this second red spot on Jupiter, which was the target of this remote viewing session. Remote viewing is a psychic technique developed by the CIA in the 1970s, which anybody can learn, and it allows you to psychically probe a distant target and gather information from it without knowing what that target is. Now this remote viewing session got weird fast. Not only weird, but creepy. So stand by for high strangeness. Now for this session I'm using the bullseye method exclusively. If you don't know what that is, or you're confused about anything I've said, just check the description for some links and further reading. Now for the first part of the data I saw these two images, and of course this is only the opening gambit, so we can't really tell what these are. I also wrote flat, life question mark, water question mark, big open flat and water question mark. I had the idea that there was water or fluid. I should have written fluid or fluid-like at the target. Now for the second image I saw, it had two parts, a smooth part in the middle and then a rough part around the edge, and I came back and wrote it on the page, and after I'd drawn that image on the page I looked at it and the first thing that came into my mind was aliens, so I wrote aliens question mark. Then I wrote water, life, sound, complex, mottled surface and shell-like. I had the idea that there was a type of a rough surface which reminded me of a shell or like barnacles on a rock which you would find on a beach. Then I saw this third image here and I tried to probe it, and I felt that the central part was fluid-like or water-like and the part around it was surface and it was rough. Then on the second page of the data I'm starting to draw something which looks like structures. I don't really know what they are. Then I saw something which looked like a structure outside with a forest type thing. I don't know what that was. Then I saw and drew something which looks like a Greek temple. Now I've seen and drawn Greek temples before on targets which turned out to be the planets Venus and Mars. Now I don't know if there are any man-made structures on any of those planets, but because I drew it here and I'd written aliens on the previous page, I was thinking, oh God, where am I now, on some type of weird planet with creepy aliens? Anyway, I carried on. So then I drew something which reminded me of one of those Tibetan temples, like a stupa, and then I drew this shape down here at the bottom. Now moving on to page 3, this is where it started to get weird. I saw this image and I had the idea of water meaning fluid and clean like sterile. Then I did two ideograms, but in my mind, and drawing them in my mind's eye and feeling them. And for the first one I put part A was smooth and part B, the second part of the ideogram, had a mottled or shell-like surface and it was rough, and I've written life question mark. Then I do the mind ideogram again, but this time part A was the life mottled surface and part B was smooth, and I had the idea that something was running off it like fluid, and it reminded me of water running off a smooth surface. So then I did the bullseye method again and I saw a big eye, and then I come back and I thought, no, that's not part of the data, so I batted it away and I tried to ignore it, and then I did the method again, and again I saw this eye, but in this time it was much bigger, and I had the idea or the question, who are you? And the answer was, I am the mottled surface. And I thought, oh God, this is really weird and screwed up. Anyway, with this big eye, I had the feeling that it was observing me and it was watching me. Now, when I'm doing the session, all of this stuff seems pretty strange and weird to me, but I'm trying to put all of my feelings to one side and ignore them and carry on with my job and finish this target. Then I carry on with the bullseye method and I see some type of structure which has a central column, some type of donut shape around it and weird tentacles coming off it. And then something like fluid or something flowing off it. And I've written structure, life and C and AOL of a jellyfish. Then I saw this face of an alien and I thought, oh no, because I know from previous experience that if there are aliens at the target, because they're heavily psychic, they can dominate the target. And I knew that if I wanted to carry on with this session, I would have to deal with them. So I reluctantly drew this picture of the face that I saw. Now at this point of the session, it's getting pretty weird. I've got gigantic eyes watching me and following me around. I'm drawing pictures of slimy sea-type creature things and faces of aliens. But if you think this is weird, just wait, because it gets even stranger. So here, page 4, at the top of the page, I'm trying to do a mind ideogram, and I get information which is similar to what I had on page 1 and 2, this shell-like surface, a rough surface, and I had the idea that there was life here. It was alive itself or life associated with it. And I've written down life, insect-like, worm-like, mollusk, slimy, wet and disgusting. And I felt myself that it was disgusting here. I didn't want to psychically probe this thing because I didn't like it. So at this point in the session, I had the idea that there were aliens at the target and I was touching them and they were insect-like, worm-like and slimy and wet and disgusting. So I didn't want to go anywhere near them. And from my previous sessions, I had these negative type of feelings from aliens. And then I've written it here again. I had the same feeling. Should I give up? ? Aliens ? I can't be bothered. I'm lazy. Anyway, I carried on and did another mind ideogram, and this time part A was mollusk-like and rough type surface, and then part B had energy, and I've written life ? Slimy, smooth. It reminds me of water running off a surface. It's slippery, smelly, and fish ? Energy, and I said it feels a little electric, like crackling electricity. Then this thing, whatever it is, I see it again in my mind's eye, but this time more clearly. It was like a sort of a dome-shaped thing, and there was, I had the idea that there was stuff streaming off it, flowing off it like fluid. And when I touched it, it felt electric. And I had the idea of something running off the surface. And on the right, I've written machine ? And I said, it seems odd, it's strange. And then I asked the question in my mind, what is it ? And the answer was a phenomena. And I said, what causes it? And the answer was weather. Now, astrophysicists tell us that the red spots on Jupiter are a weather phenomena. They're created by the weather. But somehow this data, and we'll see later, shows or indicates that somehow the aliens were actually connected with this. Now, page 5, this is where it begins to turn into a horror movie. At the top, I've written electricity, and then AOL of a storm. So there, I've called out what the target is, a storm. Then I see the face of this alien, and without me consciously wanting to do it, I touched it. I touched it on its forehead, and it felt slimy and disgusting. And then I drew it and wrote that down. Now I did the bullseye method again. I closed my eyes and I saw this guy. He was a tall, grey alien type, and I got an intense feeling of sinisterness, nasty coming from him. And I've written Dr. Evil, lol, Mr. Sinister. He's tall. You do not want to meet this guy, and if you do meet this guy, it will end very, very badly for you. I had an extreme feeling that there was something bad about this guy. Now when I saw him, strangely, I couldn't see his shoulders or upper torso. I could only see the mid-torso, arms, hands and face. And by far the most striking thing about this character was his head and his hands. His hands were long and they were like claws, very nasty. And his face was the most striking thing. And I tried to draw it again down below, but I couldn't capture the sinister or the evilness which was coming off it. So I tried to draw it again the third time, and I finally got a little bit closer, a better representation of the thing which I actually saw. So after a quick search on Google Images, I also found images of grey aliens which also had these sort of long finger claw-like hands. And I also found this other picture which, although it doesn't look exactly what I saw, I thought that it captures very, very well the sinister type feeling which was coming off this character. Now, if you've done remote viewing before, you'll know that it takes time to be able to create a psychic connection with the target, like half an hour or 1 hour or something like that. But after you stop the session, that that psychic window also remains for a small amount of time. And bear in mind, I'm doing this session in bed late at night on my own, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, do I have to go to sleep with a psychic connection to these sinister type aliens? And I was like, where's my pepper spray? I have to sleep with my pepper spray or something. There was actually a brief flash in my mind that I would go to sleep and then wake up in the middle of the night in a dark room and perceive small, strange grey figures at the bottom of my bed clutching at my feet, like that story Communion. Then I saw something which I had the idea it was metallic and there was some type of spiraling thing coming out of it, and I've written WTF metallic question mark. Then I saw this huge eye watching me again, and I just tried to ignore it. I tried to bat it away like a pesky fly and carry on with the session. Then I saw this pyramid type structure, and superimposed over it was the face of one of these grey aliens. Now while I'm seeing this, there's this type of conversation going on in my mind. Now keep in mind that when I'm doing this, the bullseye method, it's like I'm in a meditative state, and I don't really feel that I am consciously directing these questions or this conversation. It's more like you're listening in on it, or that something's going on in your mind. So I heard a question whilst I'm seeing these images. I heard a question: what are you here for? Question mark. And I didn't answer it because, you know, on the previous page I saw that sinister type character and I didn't really want to engage with them. But then I was thinking to myself, okay, you know, if they're there, they're speaking to me, you know, maybe I can get some information from them. So I asked, what is the target, question mark? And the answer that came was our spaceship. And then I said, then let me see it. And of course that sounds a little bit like impolite, but as I say, I didn't really feel that I was thinking about these things. It's just the things which popped into my mind. So then I saw this pyramid type shape, and there were cylindrical tube shaped things coming out of it with different layers, and these layers were sort of being grabbed and pulled up and sort of ripped up and rotated around, and I had the impression that there were tiny things or particles in this ripping part which were being turned around but also rotating at the same time. And I asked the question, what is this, question mark, technology, question mark? And the answer that came through was a system. And I said, of what, question mark? And the answer was ion rotation. Now, I don't really think that ion rotation it really means ion rotation. I think that it's more of a description of something which I don't really understand. And to be honest, I don't really know what it is. But anyway, as I said before, this session was getting really, really weird. And I've written down on the right-hand side there that I think I'm going nuts. And then it gets even weirder. I saw this thing, this picture, and I can only describe it. It looked like something like a loaf of bread. And what was sitting on top of it was a disc, a perfect disc, and it was jet black. And I had the impression that it was like a hole, like something was going into it. So I've written black hole. And I had the idea that it was sucking in streams of tiny particles. And I've written, am I on the moon, question mark? And then I heard in my mind again another conversation. It's our technology. I heard again, it's what you've come here to see. And then I said, what is it for? And the answer was harvesting. And I've written why? And the answer was for life. And then at the bottom there, I've tried to draw again the thing which I saw with a black mirror or a disc type thing on top of something which looked like a loaf of bread. But anyway, after getting back the feedback and saw that this was the red spots on Jupiter, and that there's all gas around there, the implication was, of course, that if all this is correct, we don't even know if it is or not because there's no feedback for this target really. But the implication is that there are aliens underneath the gas clouds on Jupiter, and they are using their technology to harvest the gas. Now that's pretty weird, right? Now moving on to page 7, I wrote down these words: bad, ominous, and I tried to expand ominous. What did it mean? Evil presence, feels unsafe, threatening. There are heavy issues, bad, sinister, evil, malevolent, a hatred against all life. And I wrote down these things because at this point in the session, I'm still reeling from that picture I drew when I saw the alien with the big claws. That's still, I felt that it was still there, and I'm trying to express the feeling, get it out, the information onto the page about what I felt or what I was still feeling, because I felt that it was still with me. And then coming to the end of the session here, I did one more blast of the bullseye method, and I saw this thing. It was like cylindrical tubes, and there were tiny particles of whatever going into the bottom of it. And I wrote, it's more technology, question mark, and I touched it and it had an electricity type feeling. So then at this point, I finished the session because it was 12 o'clock and I was tired. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to try and forget about all of this, nasty type bad feeling stuff and just go to bed. So I went to bed, I lay down, closed my eyes, and as soon as I began to drift off, I had this weird vision, okay? I was in something that looked like, I thought I was on the moon. It seemed like an alien base. I saw these strange curved structures and all around me were beings. And I felt that they were aliens. And I said to myself, where am I? So I woke back up, I turned the light on and I wrote it down and I said, where am I now? On the moon? And I said that I felt very uncomfortable here and I felt that I was surrounded and naked. And I think a better word than naked is exposed, because I felt that all of those, I was surrounded by aliens on this base or wherever it was. I thought it was on the moon, and I felt like they could all see me. So there you go, that session was both weird and scary. To be honest, I think it took me a few days to shake that sort of bad, ominous type feeling. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the session and I'll see you again next time in the multiverse.